I think at a child's birth, if a mother could ask a fairy godmother to endow it with the most useful of gifts, that gift would be curiosity. That was Eleanor Roosevelt. Hey, folks, welcome back. Today, that's actually what I want to talk about, curiosity. And why is it that it seems we've lost the will to be curious, the desire to be curious? And I've done several episodes now on critical thinking, and I think it is tied to that. I don't think there's any denying that once we gave up our ability to think critically, we also gave up the ability to be curious. And I was thinking about it the other day while I was actually doing another recording in the yard, and the pup was out playing with me, and she is fascinated by anything that moves, specifically lizards and chickens. And it's in her DNA. She is a golden retriever, 75%, and the other 25 is an Australian shepherd. So there's the whole herding mentality in her. But seriously, she will spend minutes, and if I allow her, and I stay in the yard with her, hours, just searching the hedges for lizards. And all she wants to do when she does find these lizards is she just stares at them. She just stares at them, and me and my wife say she's talking to them because her mouth just goes on for minutes on end. But she just wants to see them move. And once they move, like I said, she'll just stay there and watch them. And then when she gets bored, she'll entice them to move again, and then she'll watch them again. But the whole point is, she is a ball of curiosity. And it reminded me that we as humans have lost that. The things that we find curious these days, I don't think are important. And I think we need to be reminded that we need to be curious. And with that said, come here, come a little closer. Curiosity can lead to us asking those thought-provoking questions, like I alluded to, cover new knowledge and broaden our perspectives. And we all know, we all will agree, I think, that we definitely need more of that, right? Broadening our perspectives, because I often say sometimes we just need to shift our perspectives to see others' realities. And I believe that. And it also helps to inspire creativity, innovation, and a deeper connection with others, something else that we don't do so well anymore. And that's for so many things. I don't want to constantly pick on social media, but it is the biggest one. It detracts from so much and distracts us from so much that we lose our ability to get out of our own way and let ourselves wonder again, and dare I say, be children again. Because even kids, remember when we were kids? I mean, what do they say now? We were uber curious, right? We were daredevils. Most of us. I mean, some of us were introverts and still are, and didn't engage in much of that stuff. But for the majority of kids that operated and played outside, curious beings. And to our detriment at times, but I, I don't know. I think part of the issues that we see going on in society today is simply that we have lost the will to question anything. And as such, we become lambs to the slaughter with the talking heads and everything they feed us and everything that we get, we take as gospel and believe it and encapsulate it in our day to day. And it drives us nuts. It drives us nuts. But not to mention the things that we deny ourselves when we deny being curious, specifically mental health. Mental health, that exercise of wonderment and to steal Hercule Poirot's little phrase, I don't want my gray cells to go dormant or to just burn out or wither away. So you have to exercise them. And that means questions. And again, not to incite an argument, but just for clarity. Shameless plug for the name of our show. But for clarity's sake, we need to exercise our gray cells and take care of our mental health by just questioning. The exercise, like I said, of asking questions and seeking answers and going about getting the answers all ties into itself and encompasses, I think, our overall mental health. Not to mention curiosity. I strongly believe that curiosity helps with our overall happiness. If we dwell on the things that are the things we think we ought to dwell on, the daily grind, the daily chores, the bills to pay, the kids to pick up from school, drop off to school, help with homework, make supper, soccer practice, track practice. I get it. I get it. All of that is so fast, and within it, we forget to just be happy. Simply just go back to the wonderment of being a kid. I was trying to think of a really good example when I was a kid. Sorry for the for the digression, but I was actually thinking of a good example, and I have so many I can't. Uh, Here's one. I often didn't skip school as a kid, and that's just because I'm a closet nerd. There, I said it. But no, I often didn't skip school as a kid. But this one time, we skipped school because we were curious about the water tank that was on the hill by close to our house. So we were actually playing with fire because we skipped school and was hanging around pretty close to the house. And I think mom was home. Anyway, we were curious about the water tank that was on the hill. And, we wanted to go see if there was water in it. And if not, of course, being boys, we were going to go inside. Long story short, the way up to the water tank is laced with cacti. It's just everywhere. Every different versions of it because it was the drier side of the island, the west side of the island. Needless to say, not the west side of the island, the west side of where we lived. And it was just dry, didn't get much rain, and cacti everywhere. Of course, yours truly slipped and fell in the cacti and had it all over me. So there was no getting around having to explain where I got that. So the point, though, is we would risk almost anything as kids because of our curiosity. But now that we are older, we just forget to be curious and how much of that really matters to our happiness and our mental health. Yes. Anyway, yeah, being curious, I think, adds to our overall happiness and our overall sense of self and well-being. And if for no other reason, as we become adults, it should we shouldn't stop growing, right? I think that's another part of it, is that we think we can't learn anything new, or that if we do learn anything new, of what value is it to us at this point in our lives, right? And I think that's an unfair question and an unfair burden to put on ourselves, to say that we can't learn anything new. I mean, we've all heard the catchphrase that we can learn new things no matter how old we get, as long as we choose to. And I think that is the discussion. We no longer choose to want to learn anything new, because, as I alluded to when we started our conversation, I said that we have just given in to taking everything we hear from the talking heads as gospel. And so, uh, in other words, folks, we've just become, come on in closer again, because this one I have to tell you really close. We've just become lazy. We don't want to do the work required to think, to, and without going down the rabbit hole, I think that's part of what's going to happen with having to find a balance and the delineation between how much AI and how far we go with it, because it ties into being lazy, right? It's there for us to use, but at the same time, we have this thing at our disposal that is just, right now, right away. I think back to exercising our little gray cells. We need to exercise our gray cells by still having to do the work. Read the thing all the way through. Question what it is you read. Ask other people's opinions and throw them around, bounce them off the wall, see what sticks, right? But I think it's just because we've gotten lazy, and so we don't want to do that anymore. And in saying that, hey, folks, if you're still hanging around at this point, you are rock stars. Thanks for sticking around. I appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot. But I've been talking about seeking more questions because I wanted to share, not just, I didn't want it to sound like a demise or a dark episode. So I wanted also to throw in a few practical tips that I think can help us get over the hump of, not suppressing our curiosity. And I've been talking about one of them because it's the number one in everything you actually can do to maintain your curiosity, and that's to question things, right? Exploring new hobbies, get out there, and with all things, do your risk assessment, talk to your doctor if you're of a certain age or you have pre-existing conditions. Uh, And the hobby doesn't have to even have any of that considered in it. It could just be more time spent with friends and family, right? Which brings me to diverse perspectives, because, like I said earlier, we're lazy. We don't want to do the work to get these new ideas. So we just take other people's ideas. But if we do the work, if we do the work, part of our work is, or while doing the work in seeking clarity, we also seek new perspectives. And because we're asking the questions and we're interacting with each other, and not just over this medium, but in person, where we can look into their eyes and hear what it is that they're saying, understand what it is they're saying, because we can empathize, because we can put ourselves in their shoes, because we can relate, right? It just builds on empathy and understanding others. And I think by doing that, that will tamper down the heated rhetoric that is out there about any issue that you can think of, right? Any issue you can think of. I think just being curious and interacting with others and making that connection, that deeper connection that I talked about earlier, is important. And I also think curiosity, like vulnerability, is the bedrock on which innovation and creativity springs. I think I ought to say that again. Curiosity, like vulnerability, is the bedrock from which creativity and innovation springs. So if we lose it, we lose it. So yeah, curiosity. And I think Eleanor Roosevelt nailed it by saying that if we could wish a gift of endowment from the fairy godmothers on our children, it would be curiosity, to continue to be curious, because that curiosity is muscle memory, and it will always stay with them as long as they're curious, and you can tell, or you can see the after effects, right? Curiosity, innovation, creativity, success, both professionally and personally, because it is the bedrock from which creativity and innovation springs. So I just say go back to being curious. Look at your kids. If you do have kids playing around the house and getting into everything, and instead of getting upset, just take a second and go, I was once like that. And you might not be able to be as carefree, but you can clear your mind. All right. So until our next conversation, I say be good out there, be good out there. Take care of yourselves, and we'll talk again soon.